Hi, today's anatomy topic is biochemistry. Now, some of you might be a little afraid of that word chemistry. However, don't be. We're going to focus on the biochemistry piece of it and not get into too much detail about the strict chemistry piece. This is part one. Today, we're focusing on elements and reactions. So, in terms of elements, there are four, yes, just four elements that make up about 96% of our body mass. And those elements are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And if you look at this visual, you will see that oxygen makes up more than half of body mass, about 65%. So roughly 2/3 of our body mass is only the element oxygen. So what's the rest? Well, you can see this whole section here, all the way over to this yellow, this light blue, the green, the pink, the yellow, all the way. That's oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And then this little chunk, this remaining 4% is everything else. But those elements are very important as well. And they include things like calcium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, chlorine, sulfur, and a host of other elements. But again, their percentage in terms of mass is relatively small. That doesn't mean they're not important. It just means it's much less in terms of mass. So what are radioactive elements? Okay, first, what are isotopes? And if you took chemistry, you definitely learned this. Isotopes are forms of the same element. In chemistry, you learned they have the same number of protons, but different numbers of neutrons. We don't need to know that here. But what you do need to know is that sometimes isotopes are radioactive. That means they're called radioisotopes. And radioisotopes have a half-life. What does that mean? It means it's amount of time it takes for half of that radioisotope to decay. And while the radioisotope is present, it is going to be emitting or giving off radiation. So when we're using a radioisotope in medicine, we want the half-life to be short. Now, we probably don't want it so short that it's like milliseconds because it probably won't be enough time to perform the medical test. However, we also don't want it to be tens or hundreds of years because the whole time that radioisotope is in my body, it will be emitting radiation. So ideally for medicine, minutes, maybe hours, days, those are the ideal numbers in terms of the half-life. What are isotopes used for then? They're used to diagnose and treat diseases in medicine, and they're chosen based on the target tissue. So what am I trying to do? Am I trying to detect cancer? Am I trying to treat a thyroid disorder? It depends. And I also want that short half-life. What is the most common medical radioisotope? And that is iodine-131. And it's used for diagnosing as well as treating thyroid disorders. I remember this little trick. Iodine is used to treat the thyroid. Iodine, thyroid. Now we're going to talk about reactions. In chemistry, there are a lot of reactions that you learn, decomposition, all kinds. We're going to focus only on two. So catabolism, which is a chemical reaction where big molecules are broken down into small ones and release energy. And this happens in things like cellular respiration and digestion. Anabolism, on the other hand, is a chemical reaction where big molecules are built from smaller ones. We start small and build bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you have to take energy in for anabolism reactions. And that happens when we build proteins, it happens in photosynthesis, it happens when we replicate DNA, it happens when we build starch from strings of glucose. Okay? So during catabolism, only about 33% of the energy is actually used by cells. The rest of the energy is released as heat. However, this is important. Why? Because this heat helps us maintain our body temperature, which is crucial for our survival. So again, really quick summary, catabolism takes a big molecule and breaks it into small ones and releases energy. Anabolism takes little ones and makes a big one and takes in energy. Water. So let's talk about water. Remember those four elements, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen? The hydrogen and the oxygen, a big piece of it comes from water. So how much of your body mass is water? It's about 60%. We're going to focus on that number, although realistically it's that 60% in males, and in females it's about 50%. So it's higher in males. In infants, it's higher, probably around 75%. And what properties of water make it so important? So if you look at the visual, you can see that your brain is roughly 3/4 water. Your blood is over 80% water. Your kidneys are also over 80% water. Okay, so what properties of water make it so important, so vital? First, it's an excellent solvent. That means it's really good at dissolving. If you took chemistry, you'll know that water is polar. That means it dissolves everything that's polar and everything that's ionic. So it dissolves salts, it dissolves minerals, it dissolves nutrients, vitamins, all except the fat-soluble vitamins. The other key property of water that makes it so important is that it needs a lot of heat to change phase. So that means it helps us maintain our stable body temperature and also helps with cooling. So when there's sweat on our skin and it evaporates, it pulls away a lot of heat. So here in this visual, you can see the difference between adult males, adult females, and children and infants. And you can see that in adult males, it's slightly more, about 60% water as compared to adult females. And the reason for that is that in adult females, there is a higher fat content, less in males. And a lot of that is related to childbirth. And then in infants, the amount of water by mass is the highest. So why? What is all that water used for? We talked about its properties, but what is it actually used for in our body? So this visual goes through a lot, but I'm going to talk about a key one. First, it protects and cushions our organs and joints. There's cerebral spinal fluid around your brain and around your spinal cord that is critical and provides some cushioning for if you bump your head or when you move around. It helps to flush waste, primarily through your kidneys, okay, but helps to flush waste out of your body. It lubricates our joints, allows us to open and close your fist. So make a fist, open it, allows you to bend at all your joints. It provides that lubrication, which minimizes the pain. It helps to regulate our body temperature. We already talked about that. It's crucial. Helps to absorb nutrients. And it's needed for many reactions that occur within our body. Okay, so truly, water is important. It's why more than, or just about half, in terms of adult females, of your body mass is water. Okay, it's absolutely critical. Now, what you should know is you should be consuming 8 to 10 glasses of water. That means about 8 ounces of water a day. Some people say to use your weight in pounds, divide that number in half, and that's how many ounces of water you should consume in a day. So a 200-pound person should consume about 100 ounces of water in a day. And there's 8 ounces in 1 cup. So you can see that doesn't exactly work out to the 8 glasses of water that is proposed a day. What you should also realize is that you can get a lot of water from foods that you eat, especially when you eat things like watermelon and celery and cucumbers. They have a high water content. So some of the water we get is through food. Okay. And this is the end of part 1 in terms of your elements and reactions for biochemistry.